Well, it's Friday. Now, normally there would be two of us here. Hey, I just dropped my guitar pick. But Sabrina is actually out. She's got the kids and she's running around today. It was impossible for us to be able to do a regular style Friday video. And frankly, it's getting a lot harder because all the schools are closed. Sabrina's having to be teacher and a mother and all the other things that are going on. And it's been increasingly difficult to carve out time for her to make a video. So today I told her, or I didn't tell her, we decided jointly that she wasn't going to be part of today's video because frankly, even if I'd said, you need to be part of today's video, she wouldn't have been. She's running all over creation. It's just tough these days to get time for both of us to sit down and be able to do these videos. You know, it makes me sad. I mean, I love doing the videos with her. It's a lot of fun. It's some of the, it's a real good time to spend with her. I don't know. It's just one of those things. I mean, reality is a little bigger than anything I can deal with right now. That involves having to have Sabrina be part of it. We all do what we can, and that's what it is. So, going forward, I don't know what the future looks like. Everything depends on how things go. We've got a bunch of things going on inside the house with the kids and some other stuff that just making it a lot tougher to carve out that time. So, but I didn't want to just abandon you and say, that guy's dog just sneezed. Is he wearing a welding mask? So smoky here today. That's another thing too. We're having some health problems with two of the three kids because this huge fire that's up in the mountains it's the third biggest fire in Colorado history, and there's another fire in southern Wyoming that is close to it and that is being pushed south, and they may join up, but just like everything is orange and everything stinks of smoke and we can't sleep, and Willow's got her issues and Sabrina's got breathing problems, and it's just, the whole thing is just a mess. It's just a mess. So, sorry for that digression. I really am a creature of habit, but let's do wrist check. Okay. My wrist check. It's the Hong Kong Sua. Some of you may remember or not. I found this online, and it made no sense to me because it had this beautiful patina on this dial, which is normally that's really a 77 kind of thing. But I could see from the original case back, which had a blue sticker on it, that, here, let me turn this and get the light a little better. Hang on a second. Anyway, it had this 77 dial and the white hands like a 77, but the case back date was 1980, which made no sense to me. So I got it in here and I opened it up and I found the dial was in fact 77. So I have a 77 case back on it, and I wear it. I have the case back that goes with this case with the blue sticker and everything still on it. And I have that carefully put away. But this is a nice one. Nice watch. Pretty much just what I like. And again, it feels like my watch, which is good. Anyway, so that's what we got going on for wrist check. Anyway, it's one of my favorites. I've had other watches that had this kind of dial patina, but they, I unfortunately, I don't really have them anymore. Like I had a 6159 grandfather tuna that had dial patina from the factory like this, and that was beautiful, but it was too nice to wear. And I just, what are you going to do? But it is lovely. And the nice thing is because it's such a unique piece, it's very much mine. And so that's great. So speaking of watches that are very much mine, I thought of, I could sit here and answer questions, but that's no fun. But I have had a couple of questions, more than a couple, over a while, asking about the state of my collection. So I figured today would be a fun show and tell to actually go over the watches that I wear in my collection. And I think that'd be pretty cool. So, like it or not, that's what I'm doing. And some other stuff. There's other things going on too. I'm going through, by the way, and I'm organizing all of my supplies and parts and other stuff like this because I've got a lot of stuff. And so I'm going through and I'm organizing individual components and stuff like that. And we're going to be adding a lot of stuff to the website for parts, screws and bridges and things like that. So that's something I've been working on too. Okay, well, let's talk watches. Okay, so this should be interesting. Hang on a second. There. Okay, so I have lots and lots and lots of watches. Let me see how that looks. Okay, I have lots and lots and lots of watches. But one of the things is that only a few of them I tend to wear. Even this is ridiculous. Having this many out, I mean, it gives me more options, but I don't know. It seems kind of silly to me to have this many. Trying to think of how I can do this, make this a little better. There we go. Maybe that's better. So these are the watches that I generally tend to wear. Though some of these I could probably take out. I don't know. I don't have, it doesn't look like I have any kind of a rhyme or reason to my collection. It never does. There was a time back in the day when I remember one of these boxes having everything, like all gold dials, every variant of every gold dial, every variant of every blue dial, 6139. I don't bother with that anymore. If I don't wear a watch, it gets sold, unless it's an investment piece, and then it just gets put away. These are the watches I tend to grab and go. Couple recent additions. I built this out of parts. This has been junk in my projects drawers for a long, long, long time. I was missing a chapter ring, and so I couldn't actually build this. I'm still missing the correct case back, but since I built this for myself, I decided to go ahead and use a clear display case back, a Seiko one, which I sterilized. So you can see that the red text JDM 21 jewel movement, the winding bridge and the balance cock. These are really cool. Famously, these are ones that were purchased by the Japanese military. And so you would see these. They're an unusual design, but they're super cool. Though you could tell the military ones because they don't normally have the data on the outside of the case back. It's all on the inside, and the outside basically has a military reference number and I think an anchor. I've never seen one of those personally, but this one has a two-part sweep. No, a one-part sweep, which is not what it would have come with, but I prefer the one-part sweeps, and I didn't have a two-part sweep, so there we go. So there's that. I'm trying to think of some other cool ones. This one I've dug out. I've been wearing it again. This is one of the oldest watches in my collection. I built this as a mod. Long time ago, more than a decade ago. Hang on. Where is it? Okay, so there's this. I happen to have one of the same model with what they looked like new. They had a big taper bracelet that comes off of that. But I had a dead 5126. The inside had been completely flooded. And I had one of these with a case had just been destroyed. Like you couldn't even put a bracelet on it. So I put the two together. Cool. There's another one. These I tend to love watches that, I don't know, they feel like they're mine. So many watches that have come through here, I don't feel that way. This one, in my opinion, the best of the Mac V watches. This is the 6619 8050. 8050? 8060. I can't ever remember. 8060. Unlike the later 6619s, I'm sorry, 6119s, which had a plated base metal case, this is solid stainless steel. They're really nice. They're nice movements. People don't necessarily dig them because they're pretty slow, 18,000 BPH, but they get fantastic amplitude. And with excellent amplitude, you can get excellent accuracy. I just think it's the best of the Mcqueens. My personal absolute favorite. I just think they're so cool. And they're so hard to find now. Let's see. Oh, here's a more recent pickup. This is 6159 7000. This is a birth year and month watch for me. I'm wearing it on a strap, and that's fun. I bought this from the original owner. It's super cool. I've been wearing it, and it's just so pleasant. It's so pleasant to wear, so comfortable. And the condition is like almost exactly what I like. Where it's, you've got a little bit of wear, but not too much. This is another one of my favorites. Like some of these other ones. This is a watch that I found on eBay, and it was a complete wreck. It was a total wreck. The crystal had been smashed, and the lume was all black. But the dial, if you can see it, has this lovely sort of gold dust, stardust tropicalization on it. The original owner engraved his name in it, Jorge Miranda Dominguez, but it's got a really nice ETA movement in it, and I rebuilt this thing completely. I had to rig up a crown and tube because the crown tube was simply gone. I put on a Rolex-style twin lock. I probably should have put on a bigger, old-school one that doesn't screw down, but nothing I found really worked. But I love this watch. Total garbage, and I brought it back. Here's another one of my recent pickups. 6309 7290. Original to itself, and it has this beautifully faded bezel where it's like it's faded to sort of a blue over here and then down to black. It's a really nice watch, and it runs beautifully. I'm super happy with it. Trying to think. Well, of course, this Rolex Explorer, this is a 1016, belonged to my great uncle. He wore this for a long time and then flooded it at least twice. And when my cousin mailed it to me after my great uncle's death, and it was just a block of rust, destroyed. So I serviced it for myself because I advised him he didn't want to do it because it would have been so expensive. But I don't like shirking from a challenge, and so I rebuilt it. I stopped counting how much money it cost me in parts to fix this thing and how much labor. It was ridiculous. But believe it or not, that's the original handset. I reloomed it to match this dial, which I bought as being a service dial from the 70s. I'm not crazy Rolex enough to know if it is or isn't. The printing looks beautiful, and the lume is great, but this is what it would look like when it was new. 1966. Let's see. Now, here's another one. This is also a recent pickup. And it came to me, again, as a wreck. I mean, it looked good, but somebody had converted this to being an automatic. They had painted over the quartz under the Seiko. It had a bad condition 6309 under the hood. But so I had to do stuff like remove the paint on the dial, which turned out a lot better than I expected it to, and do some work. But it's a really super nice watch, and nice enough that I decided to pull out this, which is a genuine NOS Z199 bracelet. Love it. Those are the watches that I tend to wear a lot. This one is a runner-up. this is my slide rule. This came to me mostly from the estate of Jonathan Koch. And I built this. I like it. It's nice too because it's not like this is a modern recreation of the bracelet, but it's comfortable and durable, and I really like it. It's a pleasant watch. I like it. I only wish that these hands were orange. That's it. That's my only gripe. Here's another one of this thing that I built from scrap parts and things that I found. This is what is called a Steve Mcqueen. It's a Rolex 5512. The vast majority of this is from like 1970. Case back, dial, movement, hands, that kind of stuff. 1970. This is a service insert bezel. Case has a 1970 serial number, but this side somebody scratched off all of the data up here and kind of put their initials in the top. It was kind of nasty and scratchy. I've tried to clean it off as best as possible, and then I put my own initials on it because it was already done. But it runs beautifully. This is actually a really cool watch. It's amazing how delicate this original Rolex lume was. Man, because it was just, you would touch it and it would just flake off the dial. It had already flaked off in a few places and had been badly repaired. So I had to go in and use a clear binder on each one of these lume plots to get it to really become firm again. But if you would even just touch that, tiniest feather-like touch, and the whole thing would just slide right off the dial. But I redid it now. This is actually a really nice watch. I mean, it's not something that a collector would freak out about, and this is an aftermarket bracelet, but it's underneath the hood. It's 100% correct vintage Rolex. So it's sort of a mix and match, but it's a lovely watch. I should wear this one more often. My Jour 7500. This is the poor man's Hoyer. These were actually made by Hoyer. It seems to be. Hoyer made these for this guy who had this brand Jour, and he used to advertise it out of a magazine, a mail order magazine in New York in like the late 70s and early 80s. Val Juice 7750. But it's cool. It's a Hoyer with Jour branding on it. I was wearing this watch the day my father died. It's cool. That is the correct original bracelet, by the way. Of course, there's the new Arnie, which everybody knows and loves. Here's the only Pogue, if you want to call it that, that's in my active collection. I have more, of course, but this is it. This is a one-owner watch. I got it from the original owner, and this all I did was clean it and put it together, and service it. But cosmetically, this is as he had it. So it's got a slightly faded ring, and it's got some wear, but it's completely original, and there's just something about it. It just feels really good. And believe me, I've had some amazing watches. I don't know, but this is the one that's here that stays. And again, it feels like it's mine versus just being a generic watch. This is an old favorite. This is a 7549 7010, but it's not. I built up a 6349 movement for this, and it's an automatic. I had to do all kinds of work because the 7549s use a bunch of different calendar stuff than the regular ones. This did not come to me as a watch. This is just parts that drifted in over years. And I finally had enough stuff to build a watch. All that lume is original, so I built this. This is my auto tuna. My old friend Sean Cody, blessed memory, one of the last things he said to me, he asked me if I still had this. I was like, yeah, Sean, sure, I've got it. And he laughed and he said, I'm going to get that out of you one day. I'm going to get that off you. I want that watch. He died like 2 days later. Sorry, Sean. Anyway, I love this watch. I should wear it more often. This is an Uncle Seiko Z199 with special N-bar pieces that were custom made and mailed in. One of our regular watchers did this, and it works great. Looks nice, don't you think? This is my birthday present to myself from a few years ago. My Omega Mark IV Speedmaster, caliber 1140, I believe. It's super cool. It's got some great functionalities. Like underneath the running seconds, which is right there, this black circle with the little white arrow, that's the 24-hour indicator. So that turns. These are kind of different in that they have the running seconds for the seconds for the sweep for the chronograph is here, and the minute totaler is that little hand with the two wings on it. I don't know, it's pretty neat. I wasn't wearing this one so much. I really wasn't. I don't remember why. Even this is original. It's the original bracelet and everything. I wasn't really wearing it. Something about the proportions was kind of funky, but then someone traded to us this baby. This is one of the modern recreation of the Mark II. And when I first saw it, I was like, oh my God, that's orange. But it really grew on me. And, typical exquisite Omega finishing. And wearing this for a good couple of weeks made me appreciate that Mark IV more. This is a really nice watch. People talk about how big they are, but they're true to their original dimensions. This is how you do a recreation right. They did a good job. Updated where it needed to be updated, but the rest of it is as it should have been. Coaxial now. This is a really sweet watch. It's like, and with the crystal, it's so clear, it's like it's not even there. So it has sort of a larger look to it than that one, which has a smaller dial. That's such a cool watch. And this is my Speedy. How much to say? It's a Speedy. First watch Sabrina ever looked at of mine and said, this is going to Sebastian. She's quite sure of that. I got this for a decent price out of Canada. I think Canadian Watch Guy sold this to me. It needed service. I serviced it. And there it is. This is, this bracelet. What's the story with this bracelet? Oh, this is an Uncle Seiko bracelet. He has a whole new range of things for the Speedmaster. And so it should technically have an Uncle Seiko clasp on it, but I actually put an Omega clasp on it because I'm silly like that. Two more, a couple more to go. I don't even know how many 6105s I've owned. I just don't. This one. It has an inscribed case back, ANH. And I still think of it as meaning A New Hope. I put this one together when my son first came into the world, and I sort of think of it as his watch. It's the only 6105, 8110 I still have. I don't even know how many I've owned and sold. No idea. Sorry, we've got the air on. All original loom. And this one too, I wanted to have something more reliable. Reliable is the wrong thing. I wanted something a little more worry-free, something I didn't have to worry about. So this has a 6319 under the hood that I have added mainspring arbor jewelling to, and also a 6306 hacking lever. So externally it behaves just like a 6105B, but the parts are much easier to come by, and if something goes wrong, I don't have to really worry about it too much. It's quite accurate. I used basically the same setup with this watch that I did with this one. The only thing that's funky is that the dial ring, you got to be careful. Dial rings for a 6309 and a 6105, they don't exchange. You'd think they would, but they don't. This is another watch that I built out of parts. I got the case, believe it or not, came from India. This case, and it was empty, this case is, as far as I've been able to ascertain, the third earliest 6105 8000 case made in March of 1968. There are two older than it that I am aware of. So I built this out of parts. This one has 6105A in it. Let's see, and I think I got a few more. There's a lot of watches you guys are not going to see. Like my sprocket has some problems. I've got to look at that. This, it just looks like your regular old sub, right? This is a Rolex 168000. It's called a 000. They were only made for a few months in like 1987 and maybe into 1988. This is a really early one. It is essentially, this reference is the rarest, one of the rarest, if not the rarest, of the subs. Because it was made for such a short period of time. It was made in a time when Rolex went to the new steel from 316 to 904L. But they didn't have the new movements yet, the 3135s. So this has the new style case with the new steel, but the old 3035 movement. These are also terribly prone to having dial patina, if you want to call it that, but the dial surface is unstable and it tends to react to moisture. People have spun this a bunch of different ways. Sometimes they call them stardust. Sometimes they're spidery and you'll have these cracks across them. This one is just kind of stardusty. It's just, it is what it is. But what's really cool is that not only is this rare variant of sub, it's actually even more rare than that. This is the Mark II dial, where the S here of Submariner isn't like a curved S shape. It almost looks like a reversed Z. This is a Z dial, Mark II dial. Some people call it the Submariner. This is a really cool watch. Sort of a stealth piece. And I have, there was an article on these, and somebody was like, it's hard to find a 000. It's really not. You can find them. And it's especially hard to find a 000 with a Z dial. And that seems to be kind of true. And then the article said the real grail is when you have a 000 with the Z dial and all the extras. I have all the extras. I have everything. I have boxes, paperwork, extra parts, service records, ownership records. This was bought by a Mr. Cohen, and it was sold by a jewelry shop right around the corner from the Pentagon. So somebody in 1988 or something who was in the Pentagon who had the last name Cohen potentially was the one who bought this. Who knows? Secretary of State was Cohen at the time. He's still around. I keep thinking about writing him and saying, hey man, did you ever used to own a Rolex? Last two keepers and wearers. This is a Benrus military issue dive watch. This is like a serious hardcore grail watch for military watch collectors. 79. Type 2 Class A. It's a monoblock steel case with a lovely movement inside, and it has the great details. Like, look at the curve of the crystal and the insert. How perfectly those go together. Screw down crown, asymmetric case. It's a fantastic watch. And lastly, next to lastly, Arnie. This came to me fairly recently from the original owner, and I have the box, and some of the tags too. Really nice piece. Do love a good Arnie. And then, of course, you have my fantabulous Star Spork. I don't know what anybody else calls it. They're actually pretty rare. But this looks more like the Stargate than the Stargate. But it has this spork dial. It's like a science fiction spork. Anyway, but I call it Star Spork. You don't see them very often. This one I got lucky too. All titanium, and it's got an extra link. The movement was completely destroyed. Water, battery intrusion, battery leak, and it was gnarly. Everything underneath the dial was roasted. Thankfully, the hands in the dial were not damaged. Thankfully. It's the same handset as a 7C43 7010. It's cool. It's a wacky watch. Glows like crazy too. Titanium. Anyway, this is the current state of my collection. Sabrina also, of course, has her own watches in her own collection, which are down here. But it'd be more fun, I think, if she ever talked about that. But that's it. Wow, 3 o'clock. God, she's been gone all day. Tough day for her. Okay, folks, I think that's pretty much about it. That's the current state of the collection. Thank you so much.